Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn the most efficient and powerful ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent increasing revenue. We cover topics from sales, networking, handling objections, negotiation, pricing, finding those ideal clients, and how to get rid of the ones that just don't suit you and how to set those boundaries so you can stop giving away your time, working for free, putting yourself on sale, and really start to get paid for the value and the worth that you bring to your clients. You'll learn tips, strategies, as well as hear others from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is not only a client here at the Abundant Accountant, but he is also a CPA and a self-proclaimed data nerd. He leverages over 20 years of experience in building and enhancing information systems, transforming from a software engineer and digital marketing analyst to an accountant. He brings a very unique perspective to examining numbers beyond the traditional financial statements. He is dedicated to helping his clients stay informed with their business decisions by uncovering the narrative within the data. He's also passionate about guiding business owners to profitable ventures. He draws on computer logic and marketing psychology in his approach. But before we welcome our special guest to the show, if you're an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner and you want to stop trading time for dollars and let go of overly demanding clients while still massively boosting your revenue, here's what I have for you. Here at the Abundant Accountant, I show you a system to fill your firm with ideal clients who value your time so you can catapult your firm to the next level and work the hours you want to work, while still having plenty of free time each week for yourself and your family. And not only that, I'm also going to show you how to do all of this in a way that feels simple, effortless, and automatic. If you want me to show you exactly how to do this, go to theabundantcall.com and book your call with myself and my team right now. Now, let's welcome our very special guest, Bruce, to the show. Welcome, Bruce, to the show.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking out the time to be here and our special case study podcast here at the Abundant Accountant. It's awesome to have you here, and it's been an honor to see your growth and have you as a client and have I'm just so grateful I've been able to coach you through all this too. So before we dive in, can you share with everyone where you're at in the country and what does your firm focus on, Bruce, as far as the services you provide?
Sure. So I am in the very southern part of Florida in Broward County near Fort Lauderdale. I'm actually out west by the Everglades in a town called Coral Springs. Mm-hmm. I've lived here since approximately 1992. My family moved here when I was in college. And a year ago, I was just taking over for my then retiring father in a firm that had been in existence for about 30 years. It was actually the second of his firms. He had another one in Poughkeepsie, New York, where I grew up between the years of 1971 and 1986. And then he started this one in Florida in 1992. Wow. It was a very traditional firm, very old in its style, very paper-based, and the fee structure was extremely low because my father was, I would say, a typical CPA in that he lived in fear that the accountant down the street was going to eat his lunch with a lower price.
That sums it up. I would say a lot of people probably feel the same way. So, Bruce, before we met here at the Abundant Accountant, what were things like for you in the firm as it specifically related to the low prices, the sales process, or lack of?
So initially, when I looked over the pricing schedule that was left for me, I knew that something had to be done, that I wasn't going to be able to succeed at the level that I wanted to succeed at unless I did something about the low pricing. but it was so low that I had that same fear that my father had, which was that I would go in, I would raise all the prices, and I would risk losing the entire customer base that I had just acquired from him. So it was a little bit daunting when I first took a look at it, and I realized that I was going to have to do something about an average fee that was, I'd say, about 250 per tax return,
Right.
and move it to something that was more in line with what I saw the more modern accounting firms doing. So getting myself up into that closer to $1,000 range.
Yeah. And what did you in your firm try to do when you were going through, like, how am I going to quadruple my prices and make all these changes when things have been going a certain way for so many years? What solutions had you tried to do on your own before you said, you know what, I am going to get help from Michelle and Denise over there at the Abundant Account?
The interesting thing is, I didn't have an ownership stake in the firm when I was working with my father, so I didn't have any control over the pricing. So the changes that I was starting to make really came on day one of my operations. So I really timed my joining the Abundant Accountant to work with you and Denise right around the same time that I was taking over, because I had no idea what I was going to do at that point. And there was a lot of fear building up inside of me because I'm not the youngest of accountants out there. I have two kids in college, so I was concerned about would I take home enough money to continue to support my kids in their education if I made these drastic changes and lost a whole bunch of clients. So that was a big scary part for me.
Yeah. And the fear of, having this transition with all these clients that are used to the old ways. And then here you come making drastic changes and terrified that you're going to lose all these clients too. There was that internal battle. So,
There was, and the pricing change, we sat down and we talked about it, where we realized that if I raised my prices to what I wanted them to be, I really only needed to keep one out of every three, maybe four of the existing clients, and I would still bring home the same amount of money. And I knew my father had been living off of that just fine. I mean, he didn't have kids in college at that point, but he still had expenses.
right. So for you, Bruce, when was the time that you decided you needed support in making these changes? You're taking over your dad's firm. You've got this fear running in the back of you. You know that you only need to keep one or three, or one of three, or one of four clients, but you just didn't know how to go about it.
Yeah, that's really what it was. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to approach them about the big price increase. I didn't know how I was going to justify it. I didn't know what that conversation was going to look like. So, at least in my case, I don't lack for confidence, and I don't lack for an understanding of where my limitations are. So I pretty much decided on day one, right around the time he told me he was retiring, he gave me about a 6 week window. Just woke up one morning, came into the office and said, "That's it, I'm done." And gave me 6 weeks until he was retiring. So I think I was on the phone with Denise the next day.
Oh, wow. That was quick. So, what were some of the initial things, like those first things that you had to do and make changes in the firm that were probably the scariest?
So the one of the big ones was actually trying to move to a model where I was doing more monthly billing, even for the tax returns. So we do a little bit of everything in my firm. The only thing we don't do is financial statement audits. So I was doing bookkeeping and tax work and a lot of generalized accounting work, including answering a lot of quote unquote simple questions.
Quick question.
So yeah, I had to learn very quickly not to answer the simple questions that, even though the information is in my head, it didn't mean somebody was entitled to it without having some sort of fee associated with it.
Mhm.
That took about a year to get in place. The big one was really changing those tax returns right away. So I went ahead and I made the move on the tax returns that very first tax season. So by the time I was hitting March and April, I had already communicated to the clients that I was going to triple my price. I did leave a few legacy clients behind, some of my senior citizens. I decided not to bring them all the way up. Some of them, I even advised them to go to the volunteer income tax assistance program where they could get it done for free since I
Hmm.
can't compete with free. And I didn't really feel good about taking their money if they could get it done for free.
Right.
Some even stayed with me, though, even with a price increase, which was interesting. I wasn't expecting them to do that. So there was a lot more loyalty built in than I think my father had realized.
Hmm. And what were you most surprised about with making all of these changes in your firm on the sales side and looking back now, a year, year and a half ago, or however long it's been? What have you been most shocked or surprised by?
I was shocked by the number of people that stayed
Hmm.
and how much more I was able to make in the first year of running the business. I was able to nearly double the size of the business income in 12 months.
And if you can share a little context around that, what was the revenue when you acquired the business? And then where is it at now?
The annual revenue of the business was somewhere between 175 and 200,000,
Hmm.
and I brought it up to 355, 360,000 in year one. I've
Hmm.
since merged with another firm, and we anticipate that we will be on track to hit 1 million in under 18 months.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And when you think about it, Bruce, what are some of the biggest takeaways that you got from learning with us here at the Abundant Accountant and going through the 8 week sales mastery training? Now you're in our Abundant Millionaire Mastermind ongoing coaching program. What are the lessons that you've learned that really have made the huge shift in the way you're operating, the way you communicate with your clients, and the sales process that you've implemented?
Well, I think the biggest one is that I learned that I'm not actually selling. I'm actually providing a prospective client or an existing client with something that they really need and that they want it. It's not an issue of having to convince them that they should buy. And if they have to be convinced, they're probably not the best fit for what we can do for them. They would, in fact, be better off somewhere else where they can get a lower price because that tends to be what they're looking for. And I
Hmm.
also think I really took a lot out of learning how to communicate that message to people. So it was really in the beginning, it was a struggle for me to get the words out. I'm not bashful. I'm actually a little bit of an extrovert, which is unusual for accountants, but it was very hard for me to communicate effectively how I could help somebody as opposed to how I could sell something to somebody. So that was the hardest part for me in the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. And I think, once you realize you don't have to sell, I think the communication part becomes a little bit easier to wrap your head around because ultimately you're communicating your value. You're communicating, here's in a very unique way, here's what I do and here's why you need it, but not in those words. And I think even being introverted, which most accounting, tax, and bookkeeping firms owners are, there is a way you can do it. And it is something that you can learn. It's a skill that you can actually learn. And I think you've done phenomenal at that. What was your biggest win so far that you can share? Because I know you had a really big one.
I
That
did
was
have one.
that
I did have a big one.
that was really, surprising. I don't think you ever thought that was going to happen for you. But what was that like for you to have that huge success and how did that make you feel?
Well, first and foremost, I have to thank everybody that was cheering me on along the way to get me to go for the price that we all thought was appropriate for the level of work and the value that was going to be received by this particular client. He had been fighting with the IRS for 3+ years. I'm still fighting it right now, actually. I got them down to a 15-day window to give me an answer.
Mm.
And the client was owed several $100,000 in refunds from the IRS that they had been sitting on. They just had not processed his tax returns from 2014, 15, and 16. They were amended due to a change in the tax law. And when I sat down and I broke it down with him and I found out what was important to him and what he was missing out on from not having that money at his disposal, I was able to achieve a $50,000 payment for going up against the IRS to get him his money back. I'm still convinced that I'm going to get it. We've already received the first of the three. And since the other two are nearly identical with just different numbers in different years, I see no reason for them to deny the claim. But when we're done, he will have received about $5 for every dollar that he paid me.
Wow. And this is work that your father was actually doing for free in the past. And what did you end up charging him for this resolution case?
It was a $50,000 payment over the course of 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, my timeline was I was hoping to get this done by the end of 2023, but here we are in the beginning of 2024, and it's not quite done yet. But I think we've made a lot of progress. We made more progress than my father had made as my predecessor. We made more progress than an attorney that we had started working with had made. In fact, the attorney felt that it was unlikely that we would have a strong enough case to take this to court if needed. And I've been fighting it all the way through. And I reached a point now where I've gotten confirmation that they had the tax returns all along dating back to 2020, which they were denying. I have that on a recorded line. And that we are now outside of the appropriate time for them to have come to a resolution on it, which is why we're down to the last 30 days because they asked for a 30-day extension. Once that ends, then I will be contacting whomever I need to up the chain of command to make sure that he gets his money.
Lovely. Yeah. Well, and I mean, kudos to you for having the courage and the confidence to make that ask and be able to communicate that value that you have and get a signed engagement letter and also get paid and be able to help this client. And like you said, get him, he for every dollar he invested in you, he's made five back or saved five, I guess, in this case. I have a question, Bruce. Before you enrolled in the 8-week sales mastery course and working with the abundant accountant, what was your initial skepticism or fears that you had when making the decision to invest and put in the money and put in the time it takes into this coaching program?
So my fears were both financial and time. So my financial fear was I was just starting out in the practice on my own. So the only financial resources I really had was my own savings. And so I was investing those savings into handling the program. But also, it was the first time I was going to be totally on my own. When I came to work in private accounting after working for 20 years, actually more than 20 years in another career, I hadn't worked alone ever. I had worked in corporate environments. I left corporate. I came and I worked with my father. So this was going to be the first time I was truly on my own. And I didn't know how I was going to fit all of the work that I know needed to be done
Mm-hmm.
into the schedule that I had. So I had to reconfigure what my days looked like in order to make it work out for me. So sometimes I worked earlier in the morning, sometimes I worked later at night, did my homework on the weekends so that I could be prepared for the next session. But that was actually, I think, an even bigger fear than the money. I wasn't afraid of the money as much as I was afraid of the time.
But you took the plunge anyway, and you made that decision. For someone listening right now, what words of wisdom would you have for them as maybe they're considering making a change in their firm or getting a sales process in place if they don't have one, or going all in on changing their prices since maybe they've had their clients for 20 or 30 years, just like your father had? What is something you'd want to share with them that you wish you would have heard maybe a year or two ago?
I think I wish I knew that I shouldn't have such fear about any of it, whether it was communicating with the clients or the money or the time. Most of those things are controllable. I was able to control my time. I was used to that because I went to graduate school for my accounting degree while I was working full time and had my two kids at home still.
Mm.
So time management, I knew I was good at, but I still had that fear. The money is a fear because when you're starting out, you just don't have that much. You haven't built that nest egg in your firm yet. So that was a little bit of a fear, but that was really it for me. Is if someone had just tapped me on the shoulder and said, don't be afraid, you've got this. You just need
That's
to
true
make the
advice.
commitment. You'll be fine. It would have relieved a lot of anxiety for me in the beginning.
Yeah. And what are you most proud of the changes that you've made and everything that you've done in such a short amount of time?
I think I'm most proud of the fact that I'm building a firm that works for me instead of me working for the firm. I tell people
Mm-hmm.
all the time that my
Yeah.
preference is that I'm working to live, not, living to work.
Work.
And the firm that I'm now building is getting me closer and closer to that. I'm hoping that sometime in the next 12 to 24 months that my only role in this firm is going to be selling new business, that I
Oh, I
won't be
love that.
doing any of the accounting or tax. And it's not because I don't enjoy that work. It's because I want to build something to scale so that eventually I have a quality firm that I can sell.
Something really profitable and have a high multiple on it too. And
Exactly.
having
That's what
that
we're shooting
well-oiled
for.
machine. Mm-hmm. Love it.
Yeah, we're shooting for the 10x.
10x. Ooh, I like that. Well, thank you, Bruce, for taking out the time to share your story, especially with other firm owners that might be just starting out or they're in your position, getting a practice from a legacy family member, or maybe even just acquiring a purchase or acquiring a practice through an acquisition. Because all of these challenges are the same no matter, which direction you're going to go. What would you say to another tax, bookkeeping, or accounting firm owner who might be struggling just like you were? What else would you want to share with them that maybe we haven't talked about yet today?
If you're like me and you're buying a firm, the biggest component to that is making sure you do the due diligence because these older firms, they're going to be coming on the market and there's value to be found in them because they can be had at a discount. You just have to get to the owner and let them understand that their practice may not have the value that they think it does because they're so entrenched in their older ways.
Hmm.
So it's an opportunity just waiting for all of us.
Yeah.
There's a whole generation of people that are looking to retire and the market's going to be flooded. So when that happens, those prices have to come down for the firms that aren't prepared to make that step into this year.
That's so true. And making those right decisions that's best for you. And I think it goes back to what you shared earlier, creating the life that you want instead of having something, living to work or working to live. You're living to work and really being able to choose the design of what your life looks like. And what's in store for the future of your firm now as you see it in the next 6 to 12 months?
So we've been growing pretty rapidly. We have hired 4 new people in the last 3 months.
Whoa.
That helps us remove some of the work that's currently on our plates so that my partner and I can focus on the growth aspect of it.
Hmm.
And we're looking at how we, like I said, how can we go from 2x to 10x? How can we bring this firm into a place where we can achieve the multiple that we want, but we're also building it to really take care of the people that we bring in. So we don't use the word employee, we use the word team. We're building out a profit sharing program because we want them to succeed along with us.
Yep.
So we're trying to make it in a way that people can achieve right along with us in any way they want. We want them to grow in the directions that they feel most comfortable with or happy with. So if somebody wants to do more tax, I want to train them to do more tax. If they want to do more profit first, I want to train them to do more
Hmm.
profit first. So the idea being is that if they're happy with us, they're going to make our clients happy and we don't
Yep.
have to worry about it after that.
Yeah. And then it just makes everything happier and everyone can enjoy their work instead of feeling like it's actual work and heavy and daunting, and they'll be more happy. Well, thank you, Bruce, so much for sharing that and taking out the time to be here with us today. Is there anything else that you would like to share today that you want to end it with? Any last words of advice or anything else you'd like to share about being a part of the Abundant Accountant family?
Yeah, it's a wonderful family. Everybody is so supportive. And whether you're in the class or on the Facebook page, there's always somebody there that's going to give you their feedback, let you know that you got this, let you know that you can achieve everything that you want to achieve. You just have to go for it. And that was probably the greatest thing I got out of all of this is that, I met some wonderful people who really, especially with that big deal, really cheered me on and told me that I should be going for more money. I wasn't going for $50,000 originally. I thought I could get maybe 10. And everyone said to me, no, no, go bigger. And I said 20, and they said, go bigger. And it took until I got to 50 before everyone said, that's the number.
Yeah.
And I
And
wouldn't
there's a
have done
lot
it
of
without them.
exercises that Bruce went to before just coming up with that number. So you did a lot of work to make that happen and have the confidence and the backing inside your head to say, yeah, I'm worth that. So kudos to you, Bruce. Well, thank you again for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast and sharing your lovely story and all of your successes, and just really looking forward to what's in store for you and having you cross that $1 million mark. So I'm excited to see you and be here on that journey with you, and grateful to have the ability to say I was part of your story and coach you, and just really grateful for the opportunity. So thanks for being here.
Thank you and Denise and everybody at the Abundant Accountant for getting me there.
Of course. Thank you all so much for joining Bruce and I here on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It's always an honor to be here. And I'm just so proud of all the shifts and changes that Bruce has made, even getting past the fear and the transition. And if you're like him and are acquiring a firm or having a hand-me-down firm, these fears are real. And it's okay to be scared to make these changes. Or even if you've had a firm for 20 or 30 years and you want to make a drastic change, I get it. It is terrifying to make those changes. But what if I told you that there was a way you could really only work with your ideal clients, just like Bruce is now, who actually value your expertise and your time within the next 2 months without having to hound clients for paperwork or having to spend nights and weekends working just to keep up with things, and without having to sacrifice your family time and your freedom? And what if in just 8 weeks, just like Bruce did, you could multiply your revenue while working just 4 days a week, even if you're working and grinding 12 to 16-hour days right now and still have to work on the weekends to keep up? And not only that, but I can show you how to do all of this in a way that feels simple, effortless, and automatic. So you barely even have to think about it. And this is the same system that not only Bruce has followed, but hundreds of other tax, accounting, and bookkeeping firm owners just like you have used to create the firm they have always dreamt of. And if you want me to show you how exactly to do this, go to theabundantcall.com right now and book your call with me and my team. Once again, that's theabundantcall.com and booking a call with me and my team. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.